You are doing 55 on the highway when it happens. That bright orange glow erupting onto your dashboard like a warning flare, and your stomach drops because you already know what an orange engine light means in a world that is engineered to take your money. So you do the responsible thing and you pull into the nearest shop, and the guy plugs in his scanner and turns the screen toward you with that practiced look of false sympathy. And there it is, P0420, catalyst system efficiency below threshold. And before you can even ask a single question, he is already quoting you $1,500 to cut your exhaust open and weld in a new converter, telling you it is completely shot, telling you there is no other way, telling you that you will never pass inspection until you hand over a stack of cash that took you 3 weeks to earn, and you stand there feeling that hot wave of helplessness because you cannot afford this, and you cannot not afford it either, since a car that fails inspection is a car you cannot legally drive to the job that pays for the car. And that trap, that exact circular trap, is where they want you, frightened and cornered and ready to sign anything. But I am about to show you what that mechanic conveniently forgot to mention, and I am about to show you why that $1,500 number is, more often than not, a number built on a lie that lives inside a tiny sensor. And once you see it, you will never look at a P420 the same way again. Now walk into any auto parts store and you will find an entire glowing shelf dedicated to your panic. Rows of bottles screaming guaranteed to pass and premium emissions treatment and catalytic converter cleaner, $30 a can, $40 for the deluxe formula, all of them promising to dissolve the gunk, choking your exhaust. And here is the dirty secret of that shelf, the thing they will fight me for saying out loud. The overwhelming majority of what is inside those expensive cans is low-grade petroleum distillate, kerosene-adjacent solvent that flashes off and burns away in your combustion chamber long before a single molecule of it ever drifts back to touch your converter. You are paying $30 for a chemical that does almost nothing except give you the feeling that you did something, and right beside that same scam, sometimes literally on the same shopping trip, sits a $2 bottle of plain isopropyl alcohol that the additive industry has spent decades repackaging and reselling to you at an 800% markup under fancy names like fuel system dryer and moisture eliminator. The exact same molecule, marked up into oblivion, sold to you on fear. So hit that subscribe button right now, because the corporate exhaust chains and the additive manufacturers are running the same play on millions of drivers. They need you to believe that a check engine code automatically equals a dead converter. They need you terrified of a 4-digit number so you never stop to ask whether the part is actually broken or whether a $5 sensor is simply telling a lie. And this channel exists to drag that lie into the daylight, to put the diagnostic power back in your hands instead of theirs. So subscribe and stand with everyone who is sick of being treated like a wallet with wheels. Here is the chemistry and the mechanical truth they skip, and you need to understand it because your audience will. Your catalytic converter is a ceramic honeycomb coated in platinum, palladium, and rhodium, and just downstream of it sits a second oxygen sensor whose entire job is to sniff the exhaust and report whether the converter is still doing its work, and the engine computer sets that P420 code based almost entirely on what that downstream sensor reports, which means the single most overlooked cause of a P420 is not a ruined converter at all. It is a lazy, aged, or oil-fouled rear oxygen sensor sending sluggish readings that the computer misreads as a failing cat, a part that costs a fraction of what the converter costs and takes 15 minutes to swap. And the second most overlooked cause is simple light fouling and a converter that has never been given the chance to reach the temperature it needs, because these converters are designed to clean themselves through heat. They light off and burn away light carbon and oil residue when they are held at sustained high-load operating temperature, the kind of temperature you almost never reach crawling through stop-and-go traffic on short trips that never let the exhaust fully heat soak. So a converter that reads lazy on a city commute can read perfectly healthy after a proper, sustained high-speed run that finally brings it up to its designed operating window and lets it do exactly what the factory built it to do, for free, using nothing but heat and time. Now, let me tear that $30 miracle can completely apart so you see the full con. Because some of those emissions formulas do not merely fail to help, they actively work against you. The heavy solvents in certain blends can momentarily disrupt your fuel mixture and push the computer to run richer, dumping extra unburned fuel down the pipe. And unburned fuel is the precise thing that coats and masks a converter in the first place. So you buy a $30 bottle that produces a faint placebo improvement for a tank or two, while quietly laying down fresh deposits. Your light clears for a week, you feel relieved, and then it returns right on schedule, which from their perspective is not a failure of the product, it is the business model. A customer whose problem comes back is a customer who buys another can and another forever. And the same logic governs the shop that never even mentioned checking your rear oxygen sensor first, because diagnosing a $5 lie does not pay for the shop's lease, but cutting out an exhaust does. So here is the actual protocol, the one that costs you nothing but a little attention. Step 1. Before you spend a single dollar on parts, get the real data, plug in a basic code reader that shows live sensor information, watch your downstream oxygen sensor while the engine is warm, and if that rear sensor is barely moving or mirroring the front sensor instead of holding steady, your converter is very likely fine and your sensor is the liar, and that is a cheap fix, not a $1,500 one. Step 2. Before you condemn anything, give the converter the heat cycle it has probably never received. Take the car onto a clear stretch of highway, hold a steady, sustained, higher load cruise for a solid 20 to 30 minutes, so the exhaust fully heat soaks and the converter reaches its designed light off temperature. Then drive it like that regularly for a few days, and in a large number of borderline cases that sustained heat alone burns off the light residue and the readiness monitor resets clean. And yes, isopropyl alcohol has exactly one honest and legitimate job in this entire story. It is a water absorber. If you have genuine moisture in your fuel causing rough running, a single small bottle of plain isopropyl in a near-empty tank will bind that water so it burns off harmlessly. That is the real $2 product. The industry hides behind a $40 label, nothing more and nothing less. It is not a converter cleaner, and anyone who tells you it dissolves carbon off your substrate is selling you the same fairy tale in a cheaper bottle. Now here is your critical warning, and this one matters because it protects both your wallet and your engine. Do not pour large quantities of isopropyl alcohol into your tank chasing a converter miracle, because concentrated alcohol changes your air-to-fuel ratio and can lean out your combustion in ways your fuel system was never tuned for, and more importantly, do not let anyone, including yourself, treat a fuel additive as a substitute for an actual diagnosis, because if your converter substrate is genuinely melted, cracked, or rattling loose from real overheating, or if its precious metal coating has been chemically poisoned by burning oil or coolant from an underlying engine problem, then no liquid on this planet, $2 or $200, will ever bring it back, and pouring solvents into a tank to mask a deeper oil burning or coolant leaking failure only buys you a few weeks of silence before that same root problem destroys the brand new converter you eventually pay for. So the honest rule is simple: treat the cause, never the code, and if the data shows a truly dead cat, replace the part and fix what killed it. Do not chase a bottle. That is the line this channel will never cross. Because the second I promise you a magic liquid that replates platinum, I become exactly the kind of liar I started this channel to expose. So, look at the real comparison one more time. On one side, the $1,500 exhaust replacement they quoted you before anyone bothered to glance at a $5 sensor or grant your converter 20 honest minutes of highway heat. And on the other side, a free diagnostic check, a free heat cycle, and a true understanding of what a P0420 actually is and is not, and somewhere in the middle, a shelf of overpriced cans, betting that you will stay too scared to learn the difference. Most people will never know any of this. They will hand over the cash and drive away feeling robbed without ever understanding why. So if this opened your eyes even a little, share it right now with anyone staring down a stubborn check engine light this week. Send it before they sign that $1,500 estimate, because the most expensive thing you can ever put in your car is fear, and the cheapest upgrade you will ever make is knowing exactly how the trick works.